get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage. Over.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Berardelli and Russ Gallo. You are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Berardelli here with you. So glad to be with us because this week we finally got our you-know-what together. Russ Gallo is on the line. Russ, my brother, man, it's been really crappy without you around here.
It's been a while, Gene. How are you, bro?
I'm still alive, thank God. That's about all I can say right now.
You moved halfway across the damn country out to Long Island. We never see each other anymore. This is crazy.
I know. We only see each other for big occasions. We'll figure that out. Listen, between all the crap going on in both of our lives, a lot of good, a lot of bad, we're just lucky we made this phone call. Let's just put it that way.
Actually, very true. Very true.
We're both so happy you guys can be with us, whether you're listening at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, or if you're checking us out on AM radio, FM radio, the internet radio, or if we're traveling along with you as a podcast. You know, as always, we're glad to be traveling pretty much anywhere with you. Russ, there's so much to talk about, because we were talking off air about all the crap we missed together. Between me being out for the summer, just schedules not mixing. I don't know if we could fit everything into a show, but let's start, because, we wrote that article for Newsmax about Kavanaugh, and it's a good enough place to start as any. I need to get your take on this whole circus that developed around this confirmation.
And actually, Gene, I was looking forward to talking to you about this for so long because I know we differ on so many things when it comes to the Supreme Court and precedent and all this stuff. Where to begin? First of all, Brett Kavanaugh, Gene, this guy, he became the standard bearer for the Trump administration and all Republicans, right? But let's not forget something. He is a Bush guy.
Yes.
He's not this right-wing conservative that people think he is. And there's just so many different lenses to view this through. One of which, the one I viewed it through early on was, to me, he was a compromised pick. Trump went with the least controversial guy, and the left went utterly insane. I am trying to envision who he picks next if Ruth Bader Ginsburg kicks the bucket. I can only imagine Kanye West being his next pick. It's going to be someone so outrageous if Kavanaugh was this controversial. I've been dying to get your take on this.
The guy was the blandest of the bland. Listen, I wasn't thrilled with Kavanaugh. Listen, he's conservative in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, he's not. He's the author of the decision that basically made Obamacare constitutional. Don't like that at all. Don't like the way he wrote that. He seems to be quite conservative on some issues, quite centrist and middle of the road when it comes to the powers of the president. Maybe that was appealing to Trump. But there was no way this guy should have been put through the ringer that he was put through. It was utterly and patently ridiculous. The allegation just kept going on and on and on.
Just do me a favor, G, before we get to the allegations, let's just stick to the substance of Kavanaugh himself for a minute, because I do want to talk about the allegations and the accusers so bad. But so, if you could briefly describe for our listeners, Gene, describe court precedent, because I know this term gets thrown out a lot, and I feel like the average American doesn't really know what that means. Describe it, and maybe even talk about what Kavanaugh's view is on court precedent.
Sure. So the idea of a precedent is not really a hard and fast rule. Precedent has really to do with whether or not a previous decision is binding, that means it must be followed, or it's persuasive, which means it can be or should be followed. When you talk about the Supreme Court, it's the highest court in the land. So the only authority that may be considered binding is Supreme Court precedent that has been backed up over several cases. But not really, because a court can always change its opinion and change its point of view. So
but what did Kavanaugh say, Gene, about like Roe versus Wade, for instance?
Oh, that's well-established precedent, that it's been affirmed by multiple decisions, and therefore it would be very hard to overturn.
Yes. So, like Brown versus the Board of Education, Plessy versus Ferguson, like, these are cases that in the past, liberals love to say court precedent is like the hard and fast rule. I know Gene just said it's not, but when it comes to like Roe versus Wade, well, this is established law. No, it's not. This was a Supreme Court decision, a flawed decision in my view. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but who gives a damn? You don't have to be a lawyer to have an opinion around here. It's a flawed decision. When separate but equal was a court decision, that was obviously a flawed decision. It was overturned later on by a different Supreme Court. So I don't get why the liberals say, well-established law and court precedent, it shouldn't be overturned. Like, I don't get it, Gene. And Kavanaugh leans in that. I don't know if he was just saying these things to get, Collins on board and a few other centrist Republicans and some moderate Democrats. Maybe he was just saying that to say it, to get them on board. But, he leaned in that direction too, saying that precedent is the end-all be-all.
It isn't the end-all be-all, because if that would be the case, there would still be slave ownership allowed in this country, and there would still be Japanese internment camps. And, we would have a whole bunch of bad precedent out there. Precedent only works when, especially at the Supreme Court level, it's different than at the trial court level. Trial court has to follow the branches that are above it, right? But when you're the top, when you're the absolute law of the land, your precedent is only as valuable as the court sees that it is. And when it comes to the idea of, Roe v. Wade or, whatever the case may be, we just saw a case recently that was well-established precedent regarding union dues that was overturned because the court recently said, you know what, that decision was stupid, it wasn't right, we're going to change our view on it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that something could happen with Roe as well, given a fact pattern given to the court that would warrant a reversal of that decision. Who knows at this point what may come up before the court. But I think what Kavanaugh was saying, Russ, is that if the exact same case came up with the same facts as Roe v. Wade, then the court must follow it. If a new fact pattern comes up, I'll decide it based upon those facts. And I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to decide because I can't give you advisory opinions. That's kind of against the rules of the judiciary. So whenever someone says I'm going to follow precedent, it doesn't mean what you really think it means.
So let's talk about this, Gene. You said against the rules. So let's get a little nerdy. I think a lot of our listeners will like nerdy in this specific arena. So Marbury versus Madison, it's an old Supreme Court decision. It's where the Supreme Court basically gave themselves the power to overturn unconstitutional laws or laws that they deem to be unconstitutional, right? So that's where judicial review really comes from, is Marbury versus Madison.
Maybe the biggest taking of power by a branch of government in the history of American jurisprudence or politics.
Possibly in the history of the world. I mean, this is an unelected branch of a representative government that seized power and kept it. And it's just so fast forward, Gene. So, the liberals and even the Republicans, we get all spun up about Supreme Court, appointments. Why? Because they have this immense power. They are unelected. There's 9 of them. They're unelected and they overturn law. When we throw around this term, Gene, of, Roe versus Wade, it's established law. Okay. So what bill are they referring to? What law? Can you tell me the law? Like, where can I look up this law that they're talking about? This well-established law that is referred to when we talk about Roe versus Wade.
It wasn't any law. There was no federal standard. It was a conflict among states.
Yes. So we have dead air there because there is no law. So what is the well-established law? The last time I checked, and again, full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer, but Article 1 of our Constitution lays out the legislative branch. If you look up what the legislative branch does, that they make the laws. They make the laws. They craft the laws. They create bills. They vote on them in the House. And then they send it to who? The president, the executive branch, Article 2. He signs them into law or vetoes them. There's a couple other options he has. We won't get into those.
Are you going to Article 3? I am a bill on Capitol Hill.
Listen, I'm picturing that. Me sitting on the stairs in that little cartoon. But so Article 3 is the courts, and nowhere in Article 3 does it say that the court has the power of judicial review or to overturn these laws or to establish law or, well-established law. It's not in Article 3. If anything, it's in Article 1 and confirmed by Article 2. The legislative and executive branch. So we have allowed the judicial branch to usurp power that was never meant for them, and they've maintained it for over 100 years now. We joked around, and I've more than 100. I joked around about this with you several times. We laugh at places like Iran, where we say there's unelected zealots, these mullahs that run the country. And they wear these crazy outfits or robes, and they run the government. We have the same damn thing here. There's 9 elected judges. Usually it comes down to one guy's vote. That's why the libs went completely insane over Kennedy leaving. By the way, spoiler alert, Kavanaugh was Kennedy's clerk. So it's like Kennedy light that we're getting. It's not even like a big deal. Kennedy was appointed by a Republican. This guy's appointed by Donald Trump. I mean, you want to call Donald Trump a Republican? Go ahead and do it. He was a Democrat for his whole life until he ran for president. Like, I don't even know what's going on here, Gene. Like, I'm lost. I do want to talk about the accusers and the accusation, but why does the Supreme Court have this power? Why are people so clueless on what the 3 branches of government can do? I want to just run away and scream, Gene.
I hear you on this, and we are coming up on a hard break here. But I'll just say this. As I hear the glass with the ice, and which I can only assume Jack in it jingling.
It's Jack and Dr. Pepper. I'm not even drinking Diet Coke tonight. I'm so mad.
Russ, here's the deal with why Marbury versus Madison is now well-settled law, and why judicial review is actually a thing now, and has been a thing for over 200 years. The reason being, when the decision came down, there was no legislative response that said the courts cannot do this. There was no move for a constitutional amendment saying that the court shall not have this power. Everyone was okay with it because they wanted to have a second check on the legislature other than the political check of the president. And that's where it was basically a power taking and an indifference to that power. That's at least my understanding of it, because we've had 200 year of precedent and review of laws, of federal laws and of state laws when we have conflict between them. So, I mean, that's where it all stems from. And frankly, what else would the Supreme Court do? Because if you read the Constitution very strictly, which, I'm an originalist, I'll go along with that, framers' intent, I don't really see a role for the Supreme Court. There's a role for, federal courts to be within the states and to decide matters that are of federal concern. But there's no real reason for the Supreme Court to be there except maybe to review those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, no, it grants them the ability to review those decisions. And there are some very limited original jurisdiction cases that can come before the Supreme Court. Someone being sued from someone from another country. Like those things make sense to me. But as far as judicial review, that makes no sense. Gene, here's some little factoids about the Supreme Court, which drives me crazy that people don't know this.
Brooklyn's coming out. We get the factoids going over here.
The factoids, listen, how many Supreme Court justices are there?
Right now, there are 9.
How many does the Constitution say there needs to be?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say. What are the qualifications to be a Supreme Court justice?
It doesn't say in the Constitution.
It doesn't say.
It basically...
Correct.